I told myself I was just gonna sit down and chat about the first year of making videos on this channel. No scripting in advance, just my thoughts in the moment. And then I had a lot of thoughts in that exact moment, which was like months ago now, and which I of course had to write down. So now, there's a script. I feel like that's a solid reflection of what this channel is though, so... Someone who commented that one of my videos on this channel was awful justified being that critical by saying that they assumed I wanted to make my videos better. They were wrong. And I'm not telling you this to call that person out. People are rude, you wonder who hurt them, and move on with life. But it was such a clear and straightforward misunderstanding of why I made this channel. I already have a channel where I try to make my videos better, where I pore over my analytics and I plan out my projects and I spend time on my thumbnails and I edit my long tangents a little bit. Why on earth would I start a second channel to do the exact same thing? I'm not trying to make better videos over here. This is not a space in which I'm seeking to improve my content, especially to specifically meet the criteria of one person who's comfortable loudly crapping on anything they feel doesn't meet their own expectations, as if everything in the world must be made for them and them alone. I made this channel to have a little fun, to do some writing, to share my thoughts, to show and tell random things that I like, to cook and travel and sit and talk for an hour while I fail to work on a puzzle. And it has been over a year now. I was planning to sit and reflect on it after a year of posting here, but that was in July, so we reflect anyway and we ignore the timing. I've had a lot of fun on this channel. I sometimes had tons of videos prepared in advance. I sometimes was putting up a video just days before it came out, or the day before it came out, which is wild for my prepped in advance kind of brain. I've played around with different styles and given up on some, like the asides. I've gotten to talk about my brain and books and being a YouTuber. I've gotten to hear so many of your stories in the comments, which has honestly just been incredible. It's sometimes so unexpected what people connect to, like the name thing. Oh my goodness. So many people had a story to tell about their name, and it was as if that story had been bottled up inside of them forever, and now we suddenly all had a reason to share, and I loved that. I also heard from many people that you hated the typewriter sounds on the intro and outro, so you're welcome, they're mostly gone. You know why I use that? Because I didn't want to connect this channel to my Epidemic Sound account. Here's a random bit of background info on YouTubing. So you have to use royalty-free music, right? There's many different sources for that, but I've been using Epidemic Sound for years now, and I try to avoid the confusion of mixing and matching. Like, I prefer to know that all of my music came from that one source in case there is any sort of claim put on it. But if you have more than one YouTube channel linked to your Epidemic Sound account, you have to upgrade to Pro. And I didn't wanna, especially since I wasn't planning to actually use music on this channel. So I made my own typewriter sounds with an old typewriter that I got at an antique store, because the core of this channel is that I write, or at least it was when I started, so it seemed fitting. Anyway, I do agree that it was a very harsh sound and way too loud for a while. Sound effects are hard to, set levels on. And even though I know that the channel was made for my writing, I don't think that necessarily comes across anymore, especially now that I'm doing show and tell and travel and cooking and whatever I want to do. I just did not feel like solving this problem for a while, but then, many huzzahs, I was connected with a person who writes music and wants to start writing music for YouTubers. So shout out to Jake, who wrote me a theme song for the second channel. Problem solved. I love it. Also, I just have to point out that several times in the comments, people have told me to get Matt to either write or record music for me. That's not what he does. Matt is not a musician or a songwriter. I mean, he does play drums, but not really professionally at the moment. He was in a band when he was younger. He is an engineer. Different thing. He could mix a song for me. He could mix it real good. I can't afford him. Anyway, I wanted to sit and reflect on the channel less because it's been over a year, and more because I've been feeling kind of meh about it lately. Actually, reverse, erase. Let me be more specific. I was gonna be more specific anyway. When am I not more specific? It's not so much that I've been meh on the channel, it's more that I've been meh on writing, which is super interesting to me because my feelings on writing, or like my interest level in writing, have really been on quite a roller coaster over the course of this year. We're currently in a dip for reasons that I will actually not get more specific on because I'm still sussing them out myself. Honestly, my relationship to writing has been all over the place my entire adult life, and it's just not that big of a deal because it's not like my source of income. Even this channel is not my source of income. I don't have to care that much if I don't feel like writing, just like I don't have to care that much if videos on this channel are awful. But I do tend to analyze why, because that is just what I do with literally everything, always, forever. I have this massive document of partial scripts. Mostly partial scripts and a few finished scripts. We're talking a 432-page, 225,000 word document. I have this huge section of advice on being a YouTuber in the makerspace. After the video where I talked about learning to edit, a few of you said you would be interested in more behind the scenes, how to do YouTube kind of stuff. So I started just writing down every bit of advice that I could think of and then organizing it into categories. I have enough there for a whole series on YouTubing for people who make stuff and don't necessarily want to blow up and have a giant channel. It just needs to be organized a little further and, you know, finished. I'm working on it. Sometimes. Kinda. I also have this massive long list that I call light ideas, but really it's just more like titles. They mostly have no context, so some of them are quite funny on their own. I'm gonna read you a few. You can tell me if any of them intrigue you, but these are light concepts, so I don't even have like development of them or anything yet. I can never be accused of brevity. Tier ranking the 65 jobs I've worked. I was on a bottle of dog shampoo. I'm not making excuses, I just have reasons. Comparison is the thief of joy, but it's also the base of research. Starbucks is the most stressful job I've ever had. In defense of LA drivers. I'd love a grade on my existence. That's so true. Fight or flight, but it's just flight for me. I'm not a fan of anything. The lie I told for a decade. Do you mind if I emotionally manipulate you? What if I don't want to smell the roses? Put me in charge or let me go home. I applied for NASA. I was paid $5,000 to meet Jennifer Garner. The military has life-size dummies of me. Some of those are kind of stuck behind NDAs. And then yeah, I have scripts that really just need to be touched up, and I have scripts that are entirely finished and I could film them, and I just... Hi, Bubby, come here. Oh, gee scratchies. Bye. The state of the world definitely plays into this. Some stuff just feels really ridiculous or pointless to sit and talk about at the moment, but there's other stuff too. Like, let's be real honest here. The whole advice on YouTube series is difficult for me to work on when views are down on the main channel. I wish it didn't affect me like that. I really try to not care too much about numbers over there, but like, it's my job, so I'm okay with caring a little bit. And when I personally feel like that channel is not doing well, it's just hard to be like, let me whip out my advice for others. So recently I've been talking about plays and showing you my spoon collection and making potatoes and molasses work. Wahoo! And this is why I say I'm not really meh on the channel itself, just on writing. I have a whole list of ideas for videos that I want to make on this channel that are not really, you know, the original concept of stitching in stories, of sitting here and talking to you. And I don't push myself that hard to fulfill the every other week video schedule that I set up for myself. So far it has pretty much just happened, with the exception of maybe like 1 week where I was like, oh, forgot about that. I think it's a nice change from the main channel videos sometimes, especially when I've been doing harder or more involved projects over there. And it might actually be that when I'm enjoying my main channel projects a lot, I have more trouble even thinking about the second channel. Again, in the vein of so much crap happening in the world, it's a little bit easier for me to focus on like a delightful creative project of some kind. It's a distraction from me making it just as much as it might be for you watching it. But if there's one thing I know for sure, it's that stuff usually changes for me. I like having this job because it allows stuff to change. Everything is constantly changing while also staying pretty much the same, which is a state of being that works rather well for me. Mood-wise though, in relation to writing and wanting to share my writing, stuff always changes. Tomorrow I might have some thought tangent and sit down and write a whole new script. Or next week I may finally commit the time to weed through all my YouTube advice. Or in another vein, I might get a great new fictional story idea and do a whole bunch of writing that you will never see. I should read y'all a snippet of my fictional writing sometime, if only to make myself stop hoarding it like a word dragon. Or I might sit here right now and write for hours, because sometimes all it takes for me to want to write is to start writing. A fact I am well aware of, and yet continue to pretend isn't true. To be exceptionally honest, sometimes it's hard for me to post on this channel what I want to post on this channel, like all of those scripts of my thoughts and opinions and stories of my experiences, because I kind of fear the comments. I'm actually not good at being told I'm wrong, which is weird to say, and maybe not what I mean to say. I'm very open to being wrong. Acknowledging that you might be wrong is like a fundamental necessity of being a functioning human in society, in my opinion. I fear being misunderstood, which is not a surprising thing. Not only do a lot of people fear being misunderstood, but also it's a very common hang-up within neurodivergence specifically. Even just saying I fear being misunderstood is a little nerve-wracking to me because it sounds so stereotypical teenager. No one understands me. Which, like, for the record, I hate that stereotype itself and all the connotations around it. I mean, maybe when a teenager says they feel misunderstood, it's because they're actually being misunderstood, you know? I really despise the way that things adolescents feel or say are so often written off as like childish and cute and silly and moody. And it's like, yeah, maybe some kids are little idiots and maybe other kids are way more cognizant than some adults. So like, maybe we should just give them all the benefit of the doubt and listen to them seriously. I felt misunderstood my entire teenagerhood, and I also knew that I could never say that out loud because the response would very much be, oh, you little moody teenager, so misunderstood. But the reality was that I was highly misunderstood because I was masking like my life depended on it, which sometimes it kind of did. And I either couldn't verbalize a lot of the very confusing things that my brain was doing, or I didn't feel safe verbalizing it to the people in my life. So this kind of turned into a whole tangent. But hey, listen to kids. Anyway, I wrote a whole thing on the concept of being misunderstood online, on the experience of being misunderstood online, after like my second video on this channel. Let me find it and just read it to you. First big thing I had to realize and accept and become okay with is that people are going to misinterpret your meaning. No matter how clearly I think I've communicated my opinion or my feeling in a moment or my point, viewers are going to come to it with their own backgrounds and opinions and traumas and perspectives, and some of them are going to interpret my story through their own lens, which will warp it a little. This isn't a bad thing, it's literally unavoidable. If I was paranoid about making sure I was incredibly clear on every single point at every single moment, it wouldn't be good storytelling. And also, it can be helpful for people to receive a story through their own filters because that might be how they derive the most meaning from it. But in a situation where I get to read the comments that tell me you've misinterpreted my meaning, Well, that was a journey. The initial reaction is a strong desire to make myself clear, to follow up, to reply to the comments and clarify what I meant, but that's not healthy for me, or again, really necessary. It would take a lot of time and mental and emotional effort for me to go through every comment and clarify every point that maybe was taken the wrong way. I simply can't. I have to accept that I was misunderstood, and that's okay. To be clear right now, these are typically small things. I'm not talking about vast amounts of people completely misunderstanding huge plot points or something. For example, before I even started telling stories over here, I had mentioned my pregnancy a couple times when it came up on the other channel, and some viewers assumed that I had been a surrogate. To sit down and fully explain the story to them in the comments wasn't a viable option, so I had to accept that they had misinterpreted that info and were perhaps thinking something that wasn't true, but that was okay. And eventually, maybe I'd talk about it more, and that point would be cleared up if they just so happened to still be watching. Also, from my very first actual story on here, so my second video, this whole thing hit me hard. I talked about my college audition for the musical theater program, and a fair number of viewers seemed to take away from that story that the person I auditioned for was solely responsible for my loss of joy in singing, that he had been cruel and unkind, and it was that one sentence he uttered that ruined it all for me, even though I said in the story that he was nice about it, that I was grateful for his honest opinion. I immediately wanted to clear this up, especially since it involved another person, but I couldn't sit there policing the comments and replying to everyone who had seen the story through their own lens. The reality is that, like I said, he was kind about it, and I was grateful for his honest opinion. If he had been cruel, or singing had truly been ruined for me in that moment, I probably wouldn't have moved forward with a degree in musical theater. His words aren't solely responsible, they were just the starting point. It was the entire 4 years of college, the voice lessons, choir, auditions every semester, the musicals, the recitals. It was all of that collectively that destroyed my love of singing. And like I said in the video, I had an amazing voice teacher. It wasn't any one person's fault. It was simply how it goes sometimes when you turn something you love into something you're studying. Many people shared stories of how this happened for them in various other art forms, painting, playing instruments, drawing, when they went to college for that art. That was my point. Learning is incredible, and I freaking love learning, but sometimes institutionalized learning with grades and recitals and GPAs can destroy a thing you once loved. Anyway, that was the first time I experienced one of my stories being misinterpreted by some of the viewers, and as a person who is very particular about being understood and being honest and being detailed, it was hard for me to accept that I couldn't clarify every single tiny detail of the story and still be a good storyteller. The line between an entertaining story and a very clear, to-the-point, factual, cannot be misinterpreted one is, well, I don't think there's a line between them. I think they're two completely different bubbles. But again, what I had to realize as I kept sharing my stories is that it's okay if someone comes to my story through their own viewpoint. That may be what they need in that moment. That may mean more to them or be more helpful to them. And if that means they believe something not entirely true about some random point in my life, I have to be okay with that. I can't hold myself responsible for making sure every single person who has ever interacted with any of my content has a 100% true and clear understanding of who I am, what my opinions are, and what has happened in my life. Heck, I don't even have that. So that's part of the difficulty of sharing such personal stuff online as what I share on this channel. You're gonna be misunderstood sometimes. But I think the reason it came into my brain as being told I'm wrong is because these two things kind of lump together in my brain as the one big reason that I'm sometimes scared to tell my stories here. Yes, sometimes people are just misinterpreting your story, which, like I said, isn't really that bad and isn't avoidable. But other times people are just telling you you're wrong in the comments. And on the one hand, it might be some factual thing that I did actually get wrong, although I try to avoid saying very much factual stuff because I so hate this. Not being wrong itself, but being unable to correct myself. Like, how big of a deal does something technically or officially incorrect have to be before you take down the whole video, before you issue a second video addressing the first one? It's the inability to fix it that gets me. like when I've mispronounced a word in an entire video and hundreds of people tell me I've mispronounced it. I can't fix that. I can't change it in the video. The options are remove the video entirely because I mispronounced a word, make a second video addressing the fact that I mispronounced the word or simply address it in some future video, make a post addressing it, or pin a comment on the video addressing it. Quite frankly, all of those feel a little dramatic for something like that, right? But beyond that, you run into the issue that if you do any of the latter three, you can't guarantee that the same audience who saw the video will see the correction, even if you put it in a pinned comment on the video. You are not in control, and this is yet another thing that I have had to learn to accept over the years that I've been doing YouTube. You can't fix things once they're out there, not really. You can only remove them. And as of yet, I haven't said anything that I felt was so blatantly or problematically wrong that I needed to remove the whole original content. So I just have to accept that I have been incorrect at times, and as new people continue to consume this everlasting backlog of content, they will continue to tell me that I was incorrect, and I just have to live with that. Ironically, I was just talking yesterday about this exact problem with a YouTuber friend of mine. So it's not just me who struggles with this. But then there's often also this combo of people thinking that you're wrong because they misinterpreted your meaning. In a more recent example, I talked about my first year of reading modern literature a few weeks ago and decided, against my fears, to go unscripted. There were people who were upset that I said, it's better to read slowly and retain the information, because they interpreted my meaning to be, it is bad to read fast and not retain the information. When what I was really referring to was how some slower readers may feel they need to force themselves to read faster, even though that is not their natural reading style, so that they can keep up with recommendations or meet a quota. There were people who felt that me saying genre fiction spoils the story for me a little bit was me insulting the entire realm of genre fiction, calling all books within those categories predictable and not as good as general fiction. And I get that the word spoil can have a very negative connotation, although for me it's a rather neutral word in relation to the word spoiler. Maybe it was originally supposed to be negative, but some people like spoilers. In fact, many people in the comments said that they specifically want or need spoilers before they read a book or before they watch a TV show or a movie. So to me, spoil in the connotation of spoiler is now a neutral term. It is positive for some people, it is negative for others, making it neutral. What I didn't know is that there's already a sort of general fiction is better than genre fiction ideology out there, which makes lovers of genre fiction really at the ready to defend genre fiction. But a viewer used the term sets expectations, and I was like, yes, you know what? That would have been a better way for me to have said it. The whole point of putting a book within a genre of fiction is to set an expectation, and there's nothing wrong with that. I just personally prefer having no expectations when I read, so I personally lean towards general fiction because I feel that it sets no expectations. On the other hand, many people said they feel that general fiction does set an expectation, which is totally fair. It's not something I've personally experienced yet, but then I've only been reading modern fiction for a year. And reading these comments, seeing people upset by how they interpreted my opinions, even though it's not what I meant in most cases, my immediate natural reaction was like, damn, I should have scripted that video. But the reality is that even if I scripted that video and read through it and edited it a dozen times before actually filming it, I might have still been misinterpreted in the exact same ways because I simply don't have the same lens as other people. I can only come at my story through my own lens, and as hard as I try to predict every single response that every single person will have to the words that I say, so I can preemptively clarify every point I'm going to make, I will never succeed. And then we get to the fourth comment type in this comment group that I fear. Did I say there were four? There's 4. Being told you're wrong when you simply aren't. Like, it's one thing for people to say, I think your opinion is wrong because I have the opposite opinion, whether they've misinterpreted that or not. We can have different opinions, and that's fine. But sometimes people will tell you you're wrong about things that you can't actually be wrong about, or at least they can't possibly know that you were wrong about. Your own personal thoughts, feelings, and experiences. And I wrote something about this shortly after starting this channel too, so let's pull out that script. This isn't something I was unaware of before starting the second channel. It absolutely happened on the first channel too. Heck, it happens on Instagram. But it definitely happens more and hits a little closer to home when you are literally sharing your personal thoughts, experiences, feelings, brain function, memories, stories. There's a whole category of comment, you could call it, I suppose, that can basically be boiled down to one concept, no matter what the actual exact content of the comment is. Your feelings are invalid because I've never personally experienced them. If you find yourself immediately getting defensive, that's a sign that you've maybe left comments like this before, so I'd just like to challenge you to give a little extra thought before you comment on someone's thoughts, feelings, or experiences. Ask yourself, have I ever experienced this situation? Have I ever had those same feelings? If the answer is no, then that actually means you probably should not tell that person their experience or feelings are wrong. The inciting incident for this thought was my video about monetization of hobbies. That video did really well right away and had hundreds of comments from people relating, sharing their own stories, ranting. I love it. I want my comment section to be a place where you get to share. Write the longest comments you want, tell your stories, go for it. But as is always to be expected, there was a very small percentage of people, I'd say maybe 1 for every 100, who had a very different style of comment to leave. Basically, their comments boiled down to, people saying you should sell that don't actually mean you should sell it, they're just giving you a compliment. So stop being so dramatic about it all, say thank you, and walk away. And some of these people even clarified that they personally have been told you should sell that, and they liked it, or that they do sell something they make, and comments like that are super validating to them. And what I find so funny in such a sad way is that I never ever said in that video that you aren't allowed to appreciate or like the you should sell that compliment. I merely shared my personal experience, which is that I don't personally like it. It has led to more than one negative experience, and I don't find it a logical or helpful thing to tell a person, especially if you don't actually mean it. I mean, why would you say something you don't actually mean when you can just as easily say something you do actually mean? So these commenters who felt the need to say, just say thank you, it's a compliment, stop complaining, not only had to, for some unknown reason, invalidate my feelings and experience, but also invalidated hundreds of other people's feelings and experiences, because so many people had left their own similar stories and feelings in the comments. You don't have to do that. You can listen to someone's story and go, yeah, I've never had that experience, or I feel differently, or that doesn't apply to me, and still accept that their feelings and story exist and are true and are valid at the same time as yours, right? Yes, you can like being told you should sell that at the same time that I do not like being told you should sell that. We can have different feelings about the same thing and coexist in this world. You don't have to change your feelings for me, and I'm absolutely not going to change my feelings for you. Also, I feel the need to interject right here that I'm talking about stuff that does not involve a human being's right to life, safety, and equality. Due to the state of the world, I just feel like I have to clarify that out of fear of being misunderstood. But on top of that, people who leave comments like this, I've never experienced that, so it doesn't exist, get over it, also seem to lack any sort of imagination. And this specific comment was a great example of that. When people say you should sell that, they don't actually mean it, it's just a compliment. Okay, that might be true sometimes, but it's definitely not always true. I've definitely been told you should sell that by people who actually meant it. In fact, I, and many people who commented, have even been harassed by this idea. We've had pushy people demand that we should sell it, insist, keep pressing us constantly, bring it up every single time, massively undervalue our work, refuse to recognize the benefits of a hobby, etc., etc. Go read people's stories in the comments. So it boggles me when people say, that's not true, that's not a real thing. I haven't experienced it, I don't feel that way, so you're wrong to feel that way and you didn't actually experience it. Don't invalidate other people's experiences just because you've had a limited existence on this earth and have no ability to imagine anyone else's life, thoughts, or feelings. And if you find yourself getting defensive, ask yourself why, because the answer might be, just might, that you're part of the problem. Okay, wow, I had some big thoughts back in 2024. 'Twas feeling sassy the day I wrote that, wasn't I? And I guess we're just going with exposure therapy on my fear of the comments because this is very in the vein of stuff I've been afraid to talk about on the channel lately. Also, in the vein is apparently my current word loop because I've used that like 3 times already. The fact of the matter is, I don't really want to be a controversial person on the internet. I've never wanted that. I have extreme fear of controversy and conflict, for starters. And I avoid talking about a lot of stuff in order to avoid being controversial. I'm not even talking about stuff that I wish wasn't controversial, like love is love and genocide is wrong and trans people exist and climate change is real. I'm talking about much less important stuff where I know that my opinion is not in the majority and I know the majority can get real touchy on the subject. Stuff like weddings are a scam, and you don't have to be happy, and let's schedule emotion, why I hate holidays. That's one of my safer ones, and I still know it would piss some people off. But on the other hand, I know that there are people out there who feel exactly the same as me, and I know it would mean a lot to them to hear that they are not alone in this feeling. Like somebody that I watch briefly mentioned one time that they don't like holidays, and I was like, oh my goodness, a fellow human who feels my feels. When you feel that your feelings on some random subject are so in the minority that no one else could possibly agree with you, and therefore you should just never ever talk about it because any discussion is going to immediately become an argument, God, it can be nice to find out that you're not alone in the world. And you never are. There is always someone else who feels your feelings on any subject. And I think that's something I have to be reminded of deep in my soul. I fear the comments, but I also get so much joy from the comments because every time that someone tells me that they feel seen or less alone in the world, or that they understand someone else in their life better because of what I shared, it's like, fuck yeah, that's why I did it. We need to try to understand other people right now. We need to expand our empathy. We need to analyze our own thoughts and feelings and worldviews. We need to openly listen to other people's stories and accept that they are different from our own and they are still valid and meaningful. And that goes for me making the video and reading the comments just as much as it goes for you watching the video and leaving the comments. Okay, I just slipped into like a pep talk for myself here at this point. Writing out my thoughts drastically helped, and by filming this video and posting it, I am boosting myself over the hurdle of fear. And what does that mean for the future of this channel? Literally nothing much. I will continue to make fun cooking vlogs and cozy show and tells and whatever I feel like making in the moment because that's what I made this channel for. But also I will hopefully continue writing my stories and sharing them here, even if I have to avoid looking at the comments sometimes. I think I need to push myself in that way. On the main channel, I try to make my videos better, but on the second channel, maybe I try to make myself better by making videos. Or maybe that's a bunch of nonsense.